Everyone talks about quitting oil, electric cars, solar panels, wind farms, and it feels like we are almost there. But here's something almost nobody tells you. Even if every car on Earth went electric tomorrow, we would still be pumping enormous amounts of oil out of the ground. Because the hardest part of oil to replace is not the part you burn in your car. It is something hiding in almost every object around you right now, including, quite possibly, the food on your plate. Let me show you why. When most people picture oil, they picture a gas tank, fuel. And they are mostly right, because more than 85% of every barrel of crude oil is refined into fuels: gasoline, diesel, jet fuel. So the story seems simple. Replace the fuel and you replace the oil. But that story quietly ignores the other slice of the barrel. And that slice turns out to be the one we truly cannot live without. Start with the part everyone thinks is already solved. Cars. Yes, electric cars work. Batteries can move a car just fine. But now try to fly a plane on a battery and physics slams the door in your face. Here's the problem, and it is brutal. Jet fuel holds an incredible amount of energy for its weight. Compared to the best lithium batteries we can build today, jet fuel packs somewhere around 50 times more energy per kilogram. Now, electric motors are more efficient than jet engines, so that gap shrinks in the real world. But even after you account for that, jet fuel still delivers roughly 20 to 30 times more usable energy for the same weight. Think about what that actually means. To fly a large passenger jet across an ocean on batteries, you would need batteries so heavy the plane could never leave the ground. And it gets worse, because the moment you add battery weight, you need even more energy to lift that weight, which means even more batteries. It is a loop that eats itself. This is why, after decades of trying, the biggest electric planes can carry only a handful of people for a short hop. The same brutal math hits cargo ships crossing the Pacific and trucks hauling freight across a continent. For anything heavy that has to travel a long way, we do not yet have a real replacement for liquid fuel. But okay, let us say we solve that eventually. Better batteries, hydrogen, synthetic fuels. Even if every engine on Earth stopped burning oil, we would still be far from done. Because now we reach the part of the barrel that has nothing to do with energy at all. And this is where it gets strange. Look around you right now. The plastic on your phone, the screen, the paint on your walls, your clothes, if they are polyester or nylon, the rubber on your shoes, the container your food came in. Almost all of it started as oil. Not oil that was burned, oil that was transformed. This is called petrochemical feedstock, and it is about 10 to 12% of global oil demand. Oil is not just something we burn. It is the raw material that modern life is physically built out of. And you cannot simply swap that out. When you burn oil for energy, at least you have alternatives: the sun, the wind, a nuclear reactor. But when you use oil as a building block, as the actual molecules inside a product, there is no solar panel that makes plastic. There is no windmill that produces synthetic rubber. To replace oil here, you would have to rebuild entire chemical industries from scratch, one product at a time. And most of those replacements do not exist yet at anything close to the scale we need. And here's the irony that catches almost everyone off guard. The very machines we build to escape oil are themselves made of oil. The blades of a wind turbine, the casing and film inside a solar panel, the plastic components packed into an electric car, all of them rely on petrochemicals. In other words, even our escape route from oil is currently paved with the stuff. To leave oil behind, we first have to use enormous amounts of it just to build the replacements. And now here's the twist that surprises almost everyone. The most important thing oil and natural gas give us might not be plastic at all. It might be food. Stay with me, because this is genuinely wild. Plants need nitrogen to grow. And here's the strange part. Our atmosphere is almost 80% nitrogen. It is everywhere, and yet plants cannot use it, because that nitrogen is locked in a form their roots simply cannot absorb. For almost all of human history, this was the single greatest limit on how much food we could grow. Then, a little over 100 years ago, two chemists cracked it. They invented a process that pulls nitrogen straight out of the air and turns it into fertilizer. It is called the Haber-Bosch process, and it may be the most important invention almost no one has heard of. But that process needs hydrogen and lots of energy. And where does nearly all of that hydrogen come from today? fossil fuels, mostly natural gas. And here it is worth being precise. Oil and natural gas are close cousins, two branches of the same fossil fuel family, pumped from the same wells by the same industry. So when we talk about the world's dependence on oil, natural gas is really part of the same story, which leads to a statistic that should stop you cold. Scientists estimate that roughly half of all the people alive today are being fed, thanks to synthetic fertilizer made using fossil fuels. Half. That is around 4 billion people who exist because we learned to turn fossil energy into food. Take that fertilizer away with nothing to replace it, and best estimates suggest that Earth could not feed anywhere near its current population, and it gets even more personal than that. Researchers estimate that about half of the nitrogen atoms inside your own body got there through this one process. Part of what you are made of right now traces back to fossil fuels pulled out of the ground. So now you can see the real shape of the problem. Oil is not one thing we need to replace. It is at least 3 completely different things wearing the same name. It is the fuel that moves the heavy machinery of the world. It is the raw material our physical products are made from. And it is quietly woven into the food supply that keeps billions of people alive. Solving one of these does almost nothing for the other two. And this is exactly why oil is so stubborn. When people picture the end of oil, they picture switching off gas stations. But even in a fantasy world where every vehicle is electric, we would still need oil and gas to make the plastics, the medicines, the fertilizers, and the countless materials that hold modern civilization together. The car was always the easy part. Everything else is the mountain. Now, before you lose all hope, here's the other side, because it matters. None of this is impossible, it is just hard. Scientists and companies are already fighting back on every front. There are pilot plants making green hydrogen with clean electricity instead of fossil fuels, which could one day feed the fertilizer process without any gas at all. There are companies growing plastics from plants and from captured carbon. There's serious money pouring into clean fuels dense enough to power a plane. The pieces of a fossil-free future genuinely exist. The catch is scale. Right now, these solutions are tiny next to a world that runs on billions of barrels. So this is not a wall we can never climb. It is just a mountain that takes decades, not years. And that is exactly why this matters so much. The whole reason we are so desperate to move past oil is the carbon it releases and the damage that does to the climate, which means the difficulty of replacing it is not just a fun fact. It is one of the central challenges of the century. So the next time someone says we are about to quit oil for good, remember what oil actually is. Not just the fuel in your tank, but the material in your walls, the fiber in your clothes, and the invisible ingredient in the food on your plate. We built almost everything on top of it. And that leaves us with a genuinely hard question. If we can already build the electric cars, but we still cannot replace the plastics, the medicines, and the fertilizer feeding half the planet, then what should we actually do with the oil we have left? Do we keep burning it while we still can? Or do we stop wasting it as fuel and save it for the things nothing else can make? There is no easy answer, and honestly, I would love to hear yours. Tell me in the comments what you think we should do. And if you want more videos that dig into how the world is really put together, subscribe and stick around.